Hello and welcome to another episode of the High Danger Hockey Podcast. My name is Emma Miller and today I am thrilled to be joined by Mitch Korn, longtime NHL goalie coach. Mitch is one of the greatest that this game has ever seen. He has coached goalies to 10 different Vezina Trophy nominations and 5 Vezina wins, including those by Dominik Hasek and Braden Holtby. But he's also coached a ton of really talented modern goalies like Corey Schneider, Robin Lehner, and Pekka Rinne, just to name a few. So today, Mitch and I are going to be talking about the mental side of goaltending and what it takes to become an elite netminder in the NHL. Before we get started, I do recommend that you view this on YouTube if you are able, or you turn on captions, as this was recorded via phone call, so some of the audio might be a little less clear than it normally is. But without further ado, let's get into my conversation with the Director of Goaltending for the Nashville Predators, Mitch Korn. My first question here, I'm curious what a typical game day might look like for you and how you are helping your athletes prepare for game days.
Well, I am now the director of goaltending for the Preds, so I am not intimate to the athletes on a day-to-day basis, but certainly I once was. So I'm going to go back to what I did then, not what I do now. So what typically happens is, in when I was doing it, typically the morning of the game, we would send an email or we would send video to the goalie, okay? And that goalie would have video of the other team's top players and top shootout guys.
Okay.
Just kind of a pre-scout on what to look for in terms of tendencies and what their pre-scout or what their shootout looks like. Mm-hmm. And it would have some comment on it. And they'd either get it the night before or the morning of. They would arrive at the rink. I arrive at the rink. If we're at home, the morning skate normally starts with goalie ice at 10 o'clock. And then the team goes on at 10:15. At normally about 11 o'clock, there's a team meeting, which every team is different, but in the morning it tends to be power play and penalty kill. The goalies are in the penalty kill. The goalies are not in the power play meeting. There'll be their pregame meal. Some sit and eat it in the lounge with the team, with the other players. Some put it in a container, take it home. But the teams always now provide top shelf food for their athletes.
Right.
On a game day. They'll go home, and then I go back to my computer. My computer might be because we're playing tomorrow and I have to get that work done. Mm-hmm. It might be we play in 2 days and I got to get that work done. It might be I'm watching our minor league goalies. It doesn't end. Always try to do on a game day is hit the gym. So I try to do 45 minutes on the elliptical, take a shower, and then we would have the pre-scout of the other team's goalie.
Okay.
In our theater room, in our video room. And I would go in there, and the players would come in one at a time, 2 at a time, whatever, to watch that pre-scout, which is on a loop. And I would sit there and provide some commentary to it. So especially those that would be doing shootouts for us, etc., and talk about the opposing goalie tendencies, etc. Then there's a 5:30 meeting for everybody, and then the goalie prepares himself for the game. Most goalies get there around 4:15, 4:30. Their equipment prep tends to be in the morning, the taping of the sticks, the skate sharpening, whatever they need to do in the morning. Some guys do it when they arrive at 4 o'clock. It's based on their routine.
Right.
And then they do their stretching and get their body ready and try to get their mind ready in what we like to refer to as the zone. And everybody has different ways of getting into the zone to ready to play. There often is a common component. Music seems to have an impact there. They get their body ready, they get their mind ready, they get their eyes ready, and they have their own individual routines. And funny story, and I tell this story, is when I got to Washington, Braden Holtby was well documented that Braden had quite a pregame routine.
Right.
Well, we talked about it when we first met, and his response to me was, I control my routine. My routine does not control me.
Wow.
That was the right answer. So I left it alone. But I did want to know what he was doing. And it would have been creepy for me to follow him around. So what I did was I got the television network, Monumental Sports, to want to do a piece on Braden Holtby's pregame prep. And from morning skate, where he did a little visualization thing on the ice, to his off-ice warm-up, racquetball use, stretching, eye work, stick taping, they videoed it all. Now, they wouldn't do it, the team wouldn't allow it to happen in the regular season, so he did it in preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to see everything he was doing. And then I got them to produce a thing that they use for television. And I got a copy of it, which I used for kids in goalie camp. So, and I subsequently told Holtz that I orchestrated that whole thing, which he was fine with.
Right, yeah.
It would have been creepy if I was following it around to watch him stretch.
Absolutely.
And then the guys get themselves ready and they play. When they get to the National Hockey League, they typically have a tried and tested routine that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to get themselves in the right physical and mental place. Now, the younger goalies don't always have that. So you're actually, at this point in a National Hockey Leaguer's career, you're not spending much time on that as a coach. I'm spending time on that with the young guys.
Right. So you talk a lot about this pregame routine and the ritual. What is it that makes that so important in order to get into the zone?
Well, remember ever going to go for an exam? You're going to take an exam, and you didn't study. And when you didn't study, how much anxiety you had when you went into that exam?
Yep, been there, done that.
And then think about when you went into that exam and you knew the material, you were prepared, you felt mentally ready for that exam.
Right.
You killed it.
Yeah.
Routine is that preparation for the exam.
That's such an interesting analogy.
And so that's why it tends to be the same over time. Because once you get something that works, it's easier for you to believe it will work. You don't even doubt that it will work. The issue or the struggle comes when you get guys that are a little superstitious, a little OCD,
Yep.
that when they add something, they take nothing away. So a 10-minute ritual in 3 years turns into a 40-minute ritual, and there's an explosion.
So then what is the downside of being so fanatical about your pregame preparation? What's the drawback to that?
Well, the drawback is when the pregame preparation becomes too large, or you actually become too dependent on it. And
Okay.
if you didn't do this, whatever this is,
Mm-hmm.
you talk yourself out of being successful.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Well, I didn't do this, so I'm not going to have a good game today. You know, or you get in your own way, and you get noise in the system. You get doubt in the system. You start second-guessing the system.
Yeah.
And you know that when you get noise in the system, you often don't leave enough resources to be fine-tuned.
Okay.
I use an analogy. Also, I use a lot of analogies because it makes sense. So if you imagine that inside you is a computer program, I am the best goalie on the planet 2.0. And it takes 50 megs of RAM to run that program.
Okay.
And you only have 54 megs of RAM in your brain computer,
Mm-hmm.
in your emotional computer. And something happens. You didn't get a chance because of another meeting that got called, or because you had traffic going into the rink, or whatever reason, you didn't get this particular thing done. And you get a little anxiety because you didn't get it done. And that anxiety takes 5 megs of RAM.
Yeah.
Well, you only have 49 megs of RAM now to run the program. It crashes. And whether it's that, or whether it's getting too emotional while you're playing, or whether it's getting angry, any emotion whatsoever, directed at yourself, directed at the other team, directed at the referee, directed at your teammates, you can't run that program. I'm the best goalie on the planet 2.0.
Yeah.
It crashes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love that comparison of because the brain really is a computer at the end of the day. So, you know, we have a finite amount of space to take that stuff up. It makes perfect sense that, you know, emotions or too much routine, that stuff would get in the way of how the program runs, so to speak. That makes perfect sense.
Correct.
So so we talked a lot about pregame and leading up to the game. As far as during a game, I know a lot of players in general, but also goaltenders have some specific little either mantras or physical acts that kind of help them stay focused. And one example I can think of is Braden Holtby in between plays or after allowing a goal would do the little water bottle squirt in the air and watch the water droplets fall. What kind of purpose do those repetitive actions serve for a goaltender?
They help you refocus. Remember, we play a position where when all hell breaks loose around you, you can't break loose with it.
Right.
And as a result, there are occasions where you need to refocus, rebalance, fine-tune, sharpen the pencil, whatever you need, whatever way you want to put it. And everybody's got their little triggers to help get them back. For me, you got to do what you got to do. I think when you talk to people who do what you do, breathing is a big one.
Yeah.
Right? And the sports site guys all use breathing as a strategy And breathing is certainly a strategy. But I like to use the example, you know, the when you go bowling, it's got gutters, right?
Yeah.
But when little kids go bowling in the bowling league, they put bumpers in the gutters.
Yep, exactly.
Well, these rebooting situations for your computer, and that's what you're doing. You're rebooting your computer to get resources back to stay between the lines. So it's like putting bumpers in there.
Right.
It's got to refocus you and fix you when you're needing to be fixed at that moment.
Right. And that's interesting because obviously goaltending is the type of job where you're not going to be perfect every single game. So it's important to have that type of tool to be resilient, be able to bounce back and have a short-term memory.
Well, short-term memory we talk about all the time. In the National Hockey League, the greatest short-term memory is the Jumbotron. The reason is simple. When they give up a goal in the old days, if they were screened, if they really didn't know what happened, it's hard to let go of it because you don't know what happened.
Right.
But everybody watches the big screen. They all watch the goal on most occasions.
Yep.
That gives them closure and allows them to reboot their computer. Different guys do different things. Holtby does the water thing. Marc-Andre Fleury does a little figure eight, skates to the corner and then back to the crease. Guys do different things. But at the end of the day, it's how you reboot your computer so you can make the next save and not give up 2 goals on 2 shots.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And that's something I always wondered about goalies is you always see, when the camera zooms in on them after they've allowed a goal, a lot of times they do watch exactly what just happened. I always wondered about that because I'm like, if that's me, I don't know that I want to relive that mistake. I might want to just erase it and move on,
I don't think you can erase it until you face it.
Ah.
And this way you can get closure. It's a morbid analogy. But why do you think we have services after somebody dies? Why do we have a funeral?
Remembrance, yeah.
It allows for healing.
Yeah. Spot on.
So that's our little funeral. You watch it, it allows for healing. There we go.
Yeah, and then you can move on from it.
That's what we want to be able to do. That's why I say that the Jumbotron helps you have a short-term memory.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. Now, I know you've run goalie camps for a very long time, and I'm curious, what are you hoping to instill in these athletes by the time that they're done with your camp?
There's 3 things that I tell them at the beginning of camp. My mission is to make you a smarter goalie when we're done, a better goalie when we're done, and we hope this will be the best goalie experience of your young lives. When I explain to them how we're going to do that, we talk about 3 large sets of skills. Physical skills, mental skills, and emotional skills. And my first classroom talks about them. And almost everything we do, it's on 1, 2, or 3 of them. Because those are the 3 sets of skills we have to learn to manage.
So then, what qualities would you say that most or all great NHL goaltenders have in common?
The first and foremost is they love to play. Love with a capital L.
Yeah, that's very important when your entire life revolves around it most of the year, including the off season. That, yeah, you gotta love what you do.
And I have coached a number of guys that were very talented, maybe even more talented the successful names, but they didn't love to play.
Yeah.
They loved the lifestyle. They loved the camaraderie. They didn't love to play goal.
Right.
And I don't think anybody who doesn't love it can ever reach their potential. So that, first and foremost, is the quality that they all possess.
Mm-hmm.
The second is the level of compete. They are so competitive. They hate pucks going into the net. Most of the guys that have been really successful that I've worked with, if they gave up a goal in practice, they couldn't get the puck out of the net fast enough.
Yeah. That's the first thing they do when they allow a goal. Get that thing out of there.
As fast as they can. And it's pretty consistent across the board. And the third thing is they know themselves as well as any human could know himself.
Yeah, and I'm sure someone like a team psychologist or a sports psychologist or even a goalie coach, I'm sure all of you guys play a part in helping them get in touch with those things, those inner workings of their mind.
Yeah, well, I tell the goalies that I've coached along the way that my job is to know you better than you know you. And your job is to know you better than I know you. Now, I've coached a lot of guys who really didn't know themselves. They looked in the mirror and they didn't see what was reality. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the guys that really knew themselves, they knew their body, they knew their limits, they knew what they were. Those guys are pretty special.
I guess my final question here to kind of wrap things up on a little bit of a lighthearted note is, why do you think that most goalies catch a rep for being weird or crazy? Because I think that's something that any casual NHL fan or even members of the media, I'm sure that's something that everyone comes back to, is they're always a little quirky. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that is a urban legend.
Okay.
And a wives' tale. Well, yeah, that's what they call it, a wives' tale, right?
Yes.
I think back in the day, because of no masks, because of the high need for courage, there were guys that were off their rockers. But I will tell you now, as calm as you need to be now playing golf, you watch it. And really, playing golf is the largest oxymoron there is. Because you need to be really fast and really calm. You got to be really patient, but extremely ballistic. They're opposites.
Right.
It's very unique that you've got to display complete opposites of things to be effective. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what makes the position so unique. I know a lot of people compare it to pitchers in baseball. There's a lot of individual and team responsibility that falls on a goaltender. So, yeah, I can imagine that those opposite ends of the spectrum, it's important to be in touch with both of those.
Yes. So when you talk about pitchers in baseball or quarterbacks in football, we hear that analogy all the time.
Right.
We're nothing like either of them. You know why? The pitcher has the ball. The quarterback has the ball. The goalie doesn't have the puck.
Right.
We are 1,000% reactive. The only time we are proactive is when we might be handling a puck behind the net. We might throw the odd poke check. But other than that, we are 1,000% reactive.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the ball.
Honestly, I'm a bit surprised to hear your take on those two things, because I think you're right. Those are things that are, parroted by people. Oh, goalies are so crazy. They're just like pitchers. So I'm very interested that you kind of disagree with those popular sentiments.
That's maybe because I'm a goalie.
Yeah, people aren't asking you guys enough, huh?
No, maybe I am weird, but when you are crazy, you don't know you're crazy.
That is also true. Very true.